I haven't always been as frugal as I am now. When I was in my 20s, I had no idea how to budget my money, and my additional source of income was a credit card. But now that I'm older and a little bit wiser, I'm much more frugal with my money. And I think sometimes frugality can be mistaken with being cheap or needing to buy the cheapest thing possible. But for me, frugality is more about being smart with my money. So if you want to be smarter with your spending, then in this video, I'm going to go through some of the things I don't buy or where my spending habits have changed around those things. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about the things that I do buy, the things that I do invest my money in. And some of these things may fit with you, some of them may not, and that's okay. We're all in different situations and we all have different needs. But hopefully you'll find some of these helpful to starting your own frugal journey. So the first way that I'm frugal is buying used over new. Now, I don't always buy used over new, but I'll get into that a bit later. But generally, my default go-to is buying used over new items, and especially when it comes to clothes. If I need an item of clothing, I go straight onto eBay and I look on there for a used item. There's a particular retailer that I'll search for. I tend to know how their clothes are cut and whether they'll fit me. Now, there are times where this hasn't necessarily worked out and I have needed to send things back, but the majority of the time buying used works out well for me because it means that generally I do spend less money and I'm making use of an item that might otherwise end up in a rubbish pile somewhere. The next thing I don't buy is new mobile phones. So up until recently, I would upgrade my phone. It was never something I really thought about. When my contract was over, I would just start looking for a new model. But this time round, I've decided not to do that. What I'm going to do is go on to a SIM-only deal, which will actually save me a little bit of money each month. But also I know that I don't need to upgrade the phone I've got. It works perfectly well. It does what I need it to do. The only reason I'd be getting a new phone is because I'd be buying into the fact that, oh, it's nice to have a shiny new phone and something new to play with. And I know that that novelty will soon wear off. So another way that I'm now much more frugal is putting any spare money I have into savings or an emergency fund. I didn't have a lot of spare money in my 20s and early 30s because I just wasn't good with budgeting my money. And then I discovered the magic of the spreadsheet. I started putting all of my monthly expenses into a spreadsheet, comparing it to the income I had coming in and looking at where I needed to cut back. So there were certain things that absolutely I needed to spend money on, like bills and rent, things like that. But there were other expenses coming out of my account which were really unnecessary. And so that helped me get clear on the things that I needed to cut back on so that I'd have money left at the end of the month. And initially that money was used to help me start paying off my credit card debt. But now that I'm out of credit card debt, I've been able to start putting that money into savings and also build an emergency fund. So when I do have things that I need to spend money on, it's already there in the account. I don't need to find it from somewhere else or put it on a credit card. Another way that I'm frugal is to use comparison sites when it comes to renewing insurance. There are times when using comparison sites, it doesn't necessarily find me a company that is cheaper than the insurer that I've got at the moment, and that's fine. But I think it's really useful to go through that process to see how much money you could be saving. And I know I find it uncomfortable sometimes if I've got to ring a company and say that I'm thinking about leaving. It feels really icky, I don't like it. But sometimes if you do that, the company you're with will actually offer you a lower rate going forward. So it's well worth doing to see if you get that. And if you don't, you can just switch over to the new provider. Another way that I'm frugal is by meal planning. So my husband and I tend to have a few meals that we rotate through during the week. So this not only sort of takes the friction out of making a decision about what to eat, it means that when we go grocery shopping, we know what to put on our shopping list and we don't end up filling the trolley with things that we don't need. And this may not be right for you if you're someone who might find that boring to eat the same meals over and over again each week. But it's something that my husband and I kind of fell into, really. We try new recipes, and when we found a meal we liked, we just kept having it. Related to this is the next tip, which is batch cooking. There are some meals that we can't necessarily batch cook, but other meals we will make big batches of them and then we can have them each evening in the week. Or if you're worried about getting bored with having a meal a few times a week, you could always freeze it and then have some one week and more the next week. But I found that batch cooking has just saved my skin so many times. If I've come home from work and I'm really tired and the temptation is to order a takeout meal because I just can't be bothered to cook, having something that's already in the fridge waiting to be reheated is a huge relief. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with getting takeout, but it can add up if you're not careful. My husband and I don't go overboard if we order takeout, but it still costs us around £30 a time. And so more often than not, I would rather eat eat indoors or spend that £30 on buying more groceries than spending it on one meal. Something else that I don't buy is lunches when I'm out at work. So in my 20s, I used to buy my lunch out pretty much every day, and it was about probably £5 or £6 at a time. So as you can imagine, that soon adds up. But once I'd got into my spreadsheet and figured out my budget, I started making my own lunches. And it not only saved me money, but it also saved me a lot of stress because I wasn't having to go to the shop at lunchtime and try and find something I liked. I could actually decide what I wanted to eat for lunch and make it myself. The next thing I don't buy is branded foods, because really I can rarely taste the difference. I remember when I was young, there was a real stigma surrounding store brand foods. People who bought store brand foods were seen as cheap. I'm sure there are still people who prefer to buy the well-known brands, and that's fine. We've all got to do what fits with us. But certainly for me, I noticed that buying the store brand foods saved me a lot of money. And in fact, if you look at the packaging on store brand foods versus the well-known brands, a lot of them are made in the same factories. And also be aware of the psychology that supermarkets or grocery stores use. They want to make it as easy for you to spend your money as possible. They want to make it a friction-free process. So the well-known brands tend to be at eye level on the shelves. So you just have to look, you see the brand, you know the packaging, you just reach for it. Whereas the store brands tend to be on the upper or the lower shelves. So instead of just reaching for what's right in front of you at eye level, look up and look down and see what other brands are there. Something else I do to be frugal is to turn lights off when I'm not in a particular room. I remember my mum telling us to do this when we were younger, and I used to roll my eyes and think how annoying she was being. But then you get to be an adult where you're paying your own bills and you realise why it's so important. And especially with the cost of living how it is now and energy prices, it's even more important to be mindful of our energy consumption. So not only turning off lights in rooms that we're not using, but not having the thermostat too high on the heating. We'll also put a blanket over us on the sofa if we're too cold, rather than turning the heating up. Remember that frugality is about being smarter with your money. It's not necessarily about spending no money. So here are some of the things that I do spend my money on. I do spend my money on getting my car serviced and having its regular MOT or yearly checkup. Every month I'll put some money away into a savings pot so that when it comes to having those yearly checks on my car, I've got money in there to pay for it. Usually I will put more in savings than I think I will need, just because you never know what an annual checkup is going to bring up. So if there is a certain repair that needs doing, usually I've put enough away to get that done. Something else I will spend money on is technology that helps to reduce the friction in my life. I can be a bit of a sucker for technology trends, so I need to be careful with this so that I don't buy things that are trendy but which won't actually serve me. But something we did invest some money in was the Ninja Speedy. I cannot tell you how much we love this thing. We use this pretty much every day. You can cook whole meals in this thing and they turn out so well. So that's definitely something that we feel was worth the investment. Something else we do spend money on are items for the home. Mainly I'm talking about furniture. We're going to be moving into our new home pretty soon, and we'd saved money because we wanted to buy some new furniture. Now I know this kind of goes against me saying earlier about buying used over new, and that still holds, but for this particular reason, we'd bought a lot of secondhand furniture over the years. We've got nothing against secondhand furniture, but we found that a lot of it had worn out, particularly our sofas. They'd worn out quite quickly, and we'd ended up getting sort of quite a few aches and pains because they weren't really good to sit on. So for our new home, we made a conscious decision that we wanted to buy a few new items of furniture because it's our first home that we're buying together, and we want to buy quality items with the intention of them lasting a long period of time. And I'm mindful that not everybody can buy higher quality items because of their financial situation, but it's something that I've become more mindful of, that sometimes buying something used or buying something cheaper hasn't always worked out because we've ended up needing to replace it, or it's not lasted as long as we would have liked. So where we can, we like to invest a little bit more money in things in the hope that they will last us longer. Minimalism really aligns with being frugal because it helps you to focus on the things that are really important whilst saving you money. So if you'd like some minimalist money saving tips, then check out the video that's on the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.